Some of the older kids I admired on the cross-country team bragged about their shoes, mostly Nike and Adidas, and some of my sixth-grade friends mimicked their chatter. Just before the start of seventh grade, I informed my parents that I had saved enough money from my paper route to buy a pair of Adidas Oregon running shoes. They had a light gray nylon upper with maroon stripes, but it was the mesh netting around the midsole that drew me in. I had learned from Adidas advertisements that this mesh was known as the Dellinger Web, and had been co-developed by University of Oregon track coach Bill Dellinger as a way to harness Newton's third law of motion. The netting was said to disperse the shock of heel strike impacts through the entire sole, ultimately reducing leg fatigue. I didn't know what most of that meant, but it sounded like exactly what I needed. Although those ads seem entirely gimmicky to me now when I spot them on Pinterest, they sure grabbed my attention back then. I dragged my mom to a running specialty store, the Competitive Foot, in a nearby town to see this shoe for myself. Holding it was the clincher. These were by far the lightest shoes I'd ever held, and they just looked fast. Cool, too, which was as important as anything else to my seventh-grade sensibilities. I didn't know anything about the long history of running and shoes connected to the University of Oregon. I would learn about Steve Prefontaine, Bill Bowerman, Phil Knight, and the rise of Nike only after reading a Sports Illustrated article a few years later when I was in high school. But in my estimation, those Oregons were worth every penny of the $41.95 suggested retail price. Although I was disappointed when the high-tech webbing wore out after a few months of training, the shoes inspired me to run more and took me to new heights as a runner. Even when the season ended, I wore them every day because I was sure they were supercharged with an intangible vibe that just made me better. That was my first real touch point to a product and an industry to which I would be intimately connected later in life. I made a personal connection to the sport through that shoe, maybe because of my modest running success that season, or maybe because I was plenty gullible and intrigued by the seductive marketing that had become pervasive among running shoe brands. Probably some of both. Years later, my heart still races when I see a new shoe model for the first time. After the Oregon, there were new obsessions. A pair of New Balance 894s that propelled me to a fourth-place finish in the middle school cross-country championships, and a pair of Nike Yankee lightweight trainers that helped me set some sprinting records during track season the following spring. And on it went. For every highlight I had in my early running, there was a shoe to go with it. By the time I went to college, running and a fascination with running shoes were in my blood. As a track athlete in college, I envied my elite-level teammates who received free training shoes and spikes as part of their scholarship deals. When my shoes wore out during my freshman year, I sheepishly asked my coach if a lower-level walk-on runner like me could get new shoes, as my All-American teammates did. He pulled a paper voucher out of his desk, scribbled his signature, and told me to go get some new shoes. I visited the Body and Soul Running Specialty Store in Champaign, Illinois, where I felt the comforting and stirring vibes I'd always felt at the Competitive Foot near my hometown. They sized me up for a pair of white, gray, and black Converse shoes with a cool black star logo on each side, which many of my teammates were wearing at the time. It's hard to describe the pride and joy I felt when they sent me out the door without having to pay for them, but it closely resembled the exhilaration I'd experienced years before with those red Keds at the shoe tree. My college running career didn't evolve the way I had hoped, but I was a convert now, a lifelong runner and shoe geek. After college, I left the track behind for 5K road races. While working my first newspaper jobs around the Chicago area, I would visit every running store I came across and stay up to date with new shoes through ads and reviews in Runner's World and Track and Field News. If I ever felt as if I was